All right, so we've been traveling for over 6 years now, but yet we still fell into the same trap that we've fallen into before, and that's not hitting that buy button right away.
Yeah, so the tickets that we were wanting to buy to go overseas basically went up about $130 per ticket
Yeah.
because we were so indecisive. And yeah, that's just how things go. So this is our second video that we're doing in our series of our seventh year of our slow travel season, and we are going to be headed to Bulgaria.
Taking along with us as we prep for that, and we're going to show you kind of how we do it. Not necessarily the best way or the most optimal way, but it's just the way that we've found that works for us. So if you're preparing a short trip or even a long one like we do, stick around because we're going to kind of, again, walk you through the steps that we take as well as provide a bunch of tips too. I think we've got like 8 tips that we're going to share that should help save you at least some time, some money, and hopefully some stress too.
Okay, so you're probably wondering why Bulgaria, and it's become kind of our home away from home. This is going to be actually our 5th time returning to Bulgaria for the summer, and it just kind of fits all the boxes. It's a place where we can, eat well, get a lot of steps in, be healthy. We've got a really great gym that we love to go and work out in. And yeah, we just have a really great community there as well. We're going to be meeting up with a whole bunch of friends again this summer, and we're going to be up in the mountains in this small kind of little town where it's quiet, and it just gives us this kind of, I don't know, just sense of peace that we have when we get to Bulgaria. So yeah, that's a couple reasons why we love to return there every year. If you're new here, we're Joel and Michelle, and we help travelers and digital nomads over 45 live a more healthy, abundant lifestyle overseas. So it's not about just traveling as cheap as possible. We've actually been there and done that. We did that last year when we were in Asia. It's more about kind of just balancing our budget while prioritizing our well-being and health. Also too, if this lifestyle sounds like something that you want for yourself, be sure to sign up for our newsletter. We send out weekly tips and news about travel. You can just scan the QR code.
So now that you've already subscribed to the newsletter, I wanted to kind of get into first how we start our search. Well, before I even get into that, if you're wondering why I'm outside, it's because take a look around. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm trying to take advantage of that as much as I can and get some steps in too, so I can might as well do things at one time. All right. So the first thing we do is we start with Google Flights. And I mean, you can try other ones too, like Hopper or Skyscanner, whichever one works. I like Google Flights because we can look up the different options available for different dates, but we can set alerts for that too. We'll set alerts for all of those things, as well as maybe like the different dates that we're looking at or specific flights that we find that we're intrigued about. So now one thing to keep in mind though is that, the traditional kind of Goldilocks window has changed a bit, especially like right now, as far as like booking flights, dealing with all the airline reroutings and gas prices being high because of all that's going on. If you're planning on getting like those like 40-day out kind of ticket windows, ideal or whatever, I wouldn't expect that. You're probably looking at least not through the summer. Let's get into our first tip, and that's that Friday is basically the new Tuesday. So previously, maybe 10 years ago, you could get Tuesday was supposed to be the cheapest day to book a flight or, and to fly out on. But turns out that's not the case anymore. As of right now, I think it was from Expedia data, they were saying that basically Friday is the new day for that. Part of that's because business travel has changed in the last few years, where it's mostly kind of ending quite a bit sooner than it was before. So this is actually, I guess, a two-parter for tip 1, tip 1B, I guess. And this is actually one from Going, which is a platform for booking flights and such. So they recommend avoid booking 8 months out, which, early bird gets the worm. Well, you really don't. So 8 months out, the airlines haven't released all of those like really, really lucrative, like cheap flights. So What they do is they usually release those in small batches, 30 or 40 seats or whatever at a time at the lowest price. And then when those sell out, it stair steps up. So if you book out too early, you're not going to take advantage of any of that. Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. And one other thing real quick too, when we're looking at booking flights, and specifically for this one here, we've more and more are trying to kind of maximize our time, right? Our time is the most valuable thing we got, right? Especially at our age. So we have been looking for usually the fastest flight and not necessarily always the cheapest. And one of the reasons is because, you know, if you're sitting there on a layover that's 12 hours long or something, that's just a big waste of your time. And even if, you know, is it worth saving $100 or whatever for your ticket to spend 12 hours not doing the fun things that you want to do, having the experiences that you want? Probably not. And so another thing to think about with that is also that those long layovers, or maybe you're doing like a 24-hour layover or 12 or some kind of overnight one, that can add up too, because now you have to consider the transportation costs of getting to and from your hotel, as well as the hotel. Again, these are just all things that we consider when we're booking a flight. So next, and before we actually buy those tickets, I always check to see if any of the points that we've accumulated through our credit card rewards, if any of those points will actually get us where we're going for basically free. Now, of course, trying to find the most ideal reward flight can also be kind of like trying to find a needle in the haystack sometimes. So now that we've got our Google Flights, we got a good idea of which flights are available. We'll take a look at our preferred airlines and we search for those same flights, but we do this on each of the different preferred airlines that we like to fly on. So for instance, we like to go on KLM, Air France, Delta. They all do like co-shares together too. And I can't remember which alliance it is, but they do co-shares with that. So what we like to do is go on there and just see if they have any reward flights available in their rewards program. Because a lot of times airlines will have really great rewards. Sometimes they're really expensive. You know, like maybe it's like 80,000 miles or something like that on United, but you know, maybe it's only 50,000 if you book directly through one of their partner flights. So that's why we look at a couple different ones to see, A, is there anything available? And B, like what would the cost be? Now, like I said, not all reward flights are equal. Some of them actually have fixed rewards. So maybe it is 35,000 or 50,000 is the point value that's always for that specific route. Whereas other airlines might tie it directly to the dollar amount, or the price of the ticket. If it's 80,000 points, I'm probably going to want to utilize those points somewhere else, like for a hotel booking or a different flight somewhere, you know, get the best bang for buck out of those things. Now that brings me to another tip. So this would be, I think, tip number 2. And that is that when you are using reward flights, just note that you have to pay taxes on that, and that's usually separate. So for instance, 30,000 points, there might be another $150 in taxes in addition to using the points for that you have to pay. These are basically the airport taxes. Not all airports are the same amount of taxation. Some are a lot higher. So for instance, when you're flying into Heathrow or even like Amsterdam or something like that, you're gonna see a bit higher taxes, like, you know, $180 or whatever for a flight. Whereas flying into, I'm not sure, but just any other place, taxes might only be like $30 or something like that. So that is something to consider when you're looking for reward tickets. So now tip number 3 is that before you transfer any of those points over to an airline partner program, make sure that that flight that you're wanting to book is still available. Because the last thing you want is to transfer all your points over, and then the fact is you can't transfer those out. So it's kind of like a one-way thing. So for this flight, we did not end up using reward tickets. The main reason was because there just wasn't anything that went direct from Seattle, which is where we're leaving from, to Sofia. Now, there were options, there were routing where we could go through like Paris and then have to change planes and then use another reward ticket to get us to Sofia. So we could have done it, and I think it was gonna be like 37,000 points per ticket, which is actually really good. But that's a lot of time that we're wasting doing that, going through airport security and whatever the layover on that would have been. I can't even remember right now. But you know, with the different segments and everything, it's just a huge, huge hassle. I don't want to have to recheck everything, you know, voluntarily especially. We were just trying to keep our travel as simple as possible. So in this case, we went for a flight that was going to get us directly there. It had one stopover, but it's all in the same ticket. So it makes everything super easy, even though it may not be the cheapest option. And so the next thing that we usually do is we go over to our travel credit card reward portals and we check through there. They almost always have a booking or a travel thing where you can book through them. And in this case, we looked at Chase Sapphire and Capital One because those are the two travel credit cards that we use, just to see what kind of options there were available through there. The thing that they say is that you can get like 5x points when you book through their travel portals. And that's true, you do get 5 times the points. But in my experience, you're usually already, you're just paying for the points that you're going to get because it's always more expensive. So versus going directly to the airline and looking on theirs. So I'll put a screen up here, show you what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but if you do the calculation, it's almost equal to the same value that you're going to get in points for it. So it just it's a wash. So there is an advantage there. But the second advantage, and this is the one that we ended up taking advantage of, is that you can also pay with points there. When you book that flight, I can pay in cash, or I can pay in points, or I can do a combination thereof. So in this case, what we did is we booked, I think we used, I can't remember how many it was, maybe 40,000 points or something like that, maybe 50,000 points. But to help offset the cost of, you know, the 300 or whatever it was that we ended up kind of missing out on because we waited to book our flights. So we just used points to kind of make up that difference. Now, is that the most efficient way to do and use points? No, not at all. But it works for us and they're free. I mean, we didn't pay for them. So, you know, might as well take advantage of that. And that brings me to tip number 4, and that is don't get fooled by basic economy because those prices are usually super, super cheap. But unless you're flying carry-on only, you still got to add your bag fees. You still have to pay for a seat selection unless you just want to show up and see what happens when you know, go to check-in. I recommend always going to at least a standard ticket. If you're slow traveling, you're definitely not going carry-on only. I don't, at least, maybe there's some people out there doing that, but I don't know how to do that. We have not been able to figure that out. Not when you're traveling for 5 months or 10 months or whatever straight. All right, so that's it for me. I'm gonna send you back to Michelle. And we actually ended up getting, I think, 2,500 steps during that this whole thing here, because it took me a lot longer to say this than it did to for you to watch it.
Now that Joel's done talking, I'm going to get into our next couple of tips, and that is number 5, and that is the cancel rule. So just remember that you can cancel your flights for free within 24 hours after booking them if you find a better deal. All right, so next up is tip number 6, and that is to trust your instincts. If you think that you found a fair price or a good deal on a flight, just go ahead and book it. Don't do what we did and wait for the price to go down or be indecisive. It's probably just better to go ahead and book that flight, and it'll save you a lot of time as well. If you keep searching and searching for the best deal just to save $50, it's probably not going to be worth it. It's just going to probably end up being a lot more stress, and you're just better off moving on and saving that time. And number 7 is positioning flights. So this is where you would take a flight to a major hub like Paris or Frankfurt, and then you would move on to the next leg, which for us would be to Sofia, Bulgaria. So we have done this before, but it's usually not the most optimal. You usually have to go and pick up your bags and then go back through security again and then get on that other flight because it's probably not going to be the same airline that you flew in on. So this could make sense in certain scenarios, especially if you're planning on spending a lot of time in that region. But if you're not going to use it for a city break or even go out and visit the city on a long layover, then it really just doesn't make any sense. The tip number 8 is specifically planning travel for this summer. So we know that a lot of prices have increased due to fuel charges and also rerouting of flights pretty much around the world. So don't wait for those prices to come down. They probably won't. Don't do what we did and wait, hoping to find a better deal. Just make sure that you get those flights booked.
Hey, I wanted to give a really quick shout out to all of our channel members out there. We really do appreciate you guys, appreciate your support. It does mean a lot to us. And if you're not a member, you can check out the channel membership. We've got a bunch of videos, mostly are like kind of raw cost of living, as well as a few other ones. And we're in the process of getting ready to put a bunch more videos out there with some more kind of like deeper dives into some of these topics. Also, if you are interested in supporting us in another way, you can also buy us a glass of wine. It fuels the hours that we spend researching, writing, and sharing videos like this one. And of course, a special shout out to some of our channel viewers who recently bought us a glass of wine. We really do appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
All right, and before we let you guys go, I just wanted to share with you a couple of facts about Bulgaria. So Bulgaria did join the Schengen zone in 2024, so make sure that you count your days. It is part of the 90, 180 days in Schengen, so keep that in mind. And also too, beginning of 2026, Bulgaria has joined the Eurozone, and that means they are now on the Euro, which is nice for us because it gives us a little bit better idea for budgeting when we go to Bulgaria. But you can still use the lev as well. But yeah, everything is going to be in euros. And next up in our series of planning and preparing for our trip overseas to Bulgaria, it's going to be about how we find accommodations. So we'll see you in the next one, and happy wandering.